I'm Paul Wolliver. The name of my company is Pinellas Power Products. I specialize in Honda EV6010 RV generators. The most common question that I get as far as troubleshooting is, my generator starts when I hit the start button, and when I let my thumb off the button, it dies. So I'm going to try and do a video series on this generator with regards to troubleshooting. Earlier I had my youngest son bug this generator. Hopefully he has bugged it enough to make it a bit of a challenge, and we'll be able to figure out what's wrong with it. Okay, first things first, go ahead and hit the start button and hope the starter motor actually works. No start. Take a voltmeter on a DC voltage scale. See what the voltage going into the generator from the battery is. We got 12.35 volts. Undo the lid of fuse number 1. See if you have 12.35 volts. With the fuse in place. So you put the negative terminal of the meter against the ground, put the positive terminal of the meter against the fuse. This does two things. Number one, it tells me the fuse is good. Number two, it tells me I've got power to this point, because we've still got 12.35 volts. So that's fuse number 1. Then take the lid off of fuse number 2. Fuse number 2 has been removed. Replace fuse number 2. Fuse number 2, stock from Honda, is a 4 amp fuse. If you cannot find a 4 amp fuse, don't get too upset about it. Get a 5 amp. If there's any problem that is severe enough that it will blow a 4 amp fuse, it will also blow a 5. Check it the same way. Incidentally, we now have 12.35 volts at the end of fuse number 2. Fuse number 3 will not affect this circuit because fuse number 3 is on the AC side coming back from subwinding number 1. Okay, the generator now cranks over. And true to form, when you put the start button, the generator starts, green light never comes on, and the engine dies when you got your thumb off the start button. At this point, set your meter in DC voltage. On this 5-wire Molex, very top wire is brown, very bottom wire is brown. The center wire is red. Put the positive lead of your meter next to the red wire. Push it all the way in to make contact with the pins. The black lead next to the gray, and push it all the way in far enough to make contact with the pins. When you hit the start button, it has to show a minimum of 2 volts DC. I prefer to see between 5 and 7. So we'll go ahead and start it again. We're seeing 0 volts. Which means that there's a problem inside the control box, because the red and gray wire are the initial excitation voltage to energize the rotor, which then turns the rotor from a chunk of metal into a magnet, which is the first step in order to have a generator. Okay, this problem was an easy one so far. Red wire, or center one, has been removed from the inside of this pin. Don't just look to see if somebody has bugged the generator though. Check for corrosion. When you undo these pins, check for corrosion in here, check for corrosion in here, and check to see that the red wire isn't broken, or in this case simply removed from the back of the plug. Okay. The generators can be started with the control box disassembled, but they must have a ground strap, because there's a ground, the green wire runs from the case of the control module to the chassis of the generator. So I'm going to put a ground strap there so we can finish the tests with the control box apart, just in case there's more glitches in the control box. This is real simple. I just ran a jumper wire from the green lead to one of the bolts that holds the stator together. Once again, we test from the gray lead to the red lead. And we want to see a minimum of 2 volts. I'd prefer to see between 5 and 7. This one was real nice. The battery is fully charged. This was showing 11 volts, which leads me to believe that there is a bad connection later on and not putting a load on it. Next step is going to be to go from the top brown wire to the bottom brown wire, and that will be AC voltage. And this time, when we hit the start button, I want to see 33 volts AC coming back to it. Okay, so we had 0.5 volts, nowhere near enough. At this point, the generator would have to come out of the vehicle, because you're going to have to pull this end cover off. The next step would be to measure the voltage at the brushes. The voltage at the brushes, I normally want to see no more than a ½ volt drop from the lead, the red and gray. If it was 5, then we want to see no less than 4.5 at the brushes. Go to the brush terminals, right from the AVR. One has a red wire, one has a white wire. So now we're going to watch brush voltage. We've got 0. 0 volts at the brushes. Once you move over here. This wiring harness comes out of the control box, enters the stator, and goes right through this plug. So we're going to check the red and gray wire at this position and see what the voltage is here. Man, I miss that air conditioning. Okay, here's the red and gray wire right here. so they're easily accessible. Again, red wire goes to red, the black wire goes to gray. When we crank it over, we want to see a minimum of 2 volts again, preferably between 5 and 7. Now we just saw 0. What that means is that somewhere between here and here, there's a broken either gray wire or brown wire, or excuse me, gray wire or red wire. So if you set your meter on the ohm scale, how are we doing for time?
We're pretty close.
Okay. Set your meter on the ohm scale. It'll show OL, which is an open circuit. Touch the 2 meter leads together, make sure it zeroes out. At that point, put either lead to the brown, or excuse me, the red wire, I keep saying brown, at this position, and in the red wire in this position. They should have continuity. They do not. Okay, so the red wire is broken somewhere. Then we go to the gray. The gray has connection. So let's go back. Nice. Okay. Somebody has put a dummy wire in here for me to simulate a broken red wire. Very nice, very nice. So we're going to remove the dummy wire from the harness. Hopefully the terminal is still on. Okay, good. We just removed the terminal. Plug the red wire in. Now on a continuity scale again, red, and we have a connection. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and plug this back in. And that's probably as good a place as any to get something to drink and take a break.